Hello and welcome to the Woke Socialist Podcast. We're woke, we're socialist, we're not going anywhere. This is Vivian Zink. First, let me say that I am very disappointed in the Maryland primaries. Uh, it is one of the bluest states in the union. I cannot believe that we fell for the okie doke. Um, we in the state of Maryland have learned to take for granted that we are one of the bluest states. So a lot of times people vote based on name recognition, who endorses who, instead of doing their research. And we find that Adrian Boafo was backed up by Steny Hoyer, who I didn't have a problem with initially until I found out that he was taking AIPAC donations, and all the rest of them followed. So it's just a big catastrophe here. I would like to ask you before we get into the topics of the day to please like and subscribe to this video. It costs nothing to subscribe. As you know, the algorithms on YouTube and other social media outlets are being fucked with. So if you leave a comment and like and subscribe, it will help this content come to you a lot more frequently. So let me get into what has become a vitriol within the Democratic Party. Right now, with me, the Democratic Party is an absolute mockery of liberty. We already gave up on Republicans a long time ago. I did in 2016 because I already knew what was coming. When I knew that Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and that ilk was already taking PAC money. It was the big thing was Big Pharma with Hillary Clinton, and with Nancy Pelosi, it was Israeli interests. I already knew where we were headed. We tried to warn you. I wasn't doing podcasts back then, but I was on the ground trying to warn people that this is not sustainable. Big money in elections is not sustainable. And now the most progressive or so-called progressive Democrats are eating their own. But that's not going to work this time, because this mockery of liberty is something that black people and Native Americans have seen since the first white person landed here. You get here, like you do with slavery or manifest destiny, and you convince a certain segment of each society that you're their friends, they're with you, they're going to protect you, and you're one of them. Soon you become part of the club, like Clarence Thomas. You're part of the in crowd, and they will carry you however long it takes to remain in power. Now, we've seen this happen, like I said, during Manifest Destiny. We've seen this happen with slavery, where you had certain Native American nations that made deals with white people so that they can defeat their Native American enemies. And you have black people in America during slavery that wanted to get ahead, or whatever the motivation was, to side with the master so that they would gain favorability. Then we move on through the ages, through the centuries, and we get to a certain knowledge among white people that they have to allow somewhat of a branching out of black Americans into society so that they could continue to perpetuate this myth that the United States of America is a free country that anyone can come to, that we tolerate all religions. There's freedom here. But what they don't tell you is that they will do this only if it serves in the interest of capitalism. That being said, you had your civil rights laws being passed. You had Reconstruction and the revocation of it. You had certain court cases like Loving v. Virginia that were won on behalf of interracial couples, and laws that allowed for abortion access in gay marriage. But it always comes with a revocation throughout American history. Every so many years, every generation of every non-white class of citizen that has come to this country, except for Italians, Irish, in some cases Latinos, there is a gifting, and I say that in air quotes, of liberties, and then them being taken away. Why does this happen? This happens because in order for the white race to continue to have a smorgasbord of people to sell this dream to and benefit off of financially, there has to be a scapegoat, an underdog, a less than. This exists to build up loyalty and to build up a false belief that these things can be achieved by the next generation of folks who are not black and folks who are not a Native American. And so we bought into this. And so with Loving v. Virginia, you get your high yellow black people. And they know what they're doing. So the Democratic Party does not have any control over individuals that were elected after the Civil Rights Movement, because that was maybe the second Reconstruction. But they can control these mixed blood, high yellow, blue-eyed black people. Because just like Governor Westmore of the state of Maryland, and you can see it in their posts, they think they're above black people as a whole. So they buy into this notion of the house Negro. And I have been put here to convince the field Negro that he needs to go along to get along. And he relies on the assumption that the field Negro is too stupid to do their research and find out what the house Negro is doing behind their back. He thinks you're uneducated. He thinks you need a college degree to know how to read how he votes. He thinks since you have 3 or 4 jobs, you have no time to pay attention to what he's doing. But since 2016, some of us have been paying attention. We have known all along about dark money in the Democratic Party, but people refuse to listen. because they are going on the trust in the baby boomer generation. And you need to vote blue no matter who. And the reason why you have a roof over your head is because of these people. No, it's not. Because since Hillary Clinton, or earlier than that, they have been systematically putting themselves in a position to leave you behind while they line their pockets. Case in point, Nancy Pelosi is worth upwards of $10 million, if not more, by being an Israel lobbyist since 1987 and taking full advantage of insider trading or information, we will say. We won't call it insider trading. Knowing what laws are going to be passed and then trading stocks or making investment based on that information. Now you have AOC all of a sudden deciding she's going to back Hakeem Jeffries. I hope to fuck Bernie Sanders does not follow suit, because this is not where the nation is going. It is not. Now, I look at the Hakeem Jeffries and the Cory Bookers of the world kind of like I did the Italians of the 1980s and the Puerto Ricans of the 1980s. Back then, if you called them white, they would blow a fucking gasket. Now, all of a sudden, they're nowhere to be found in black movements. They call themselves white. And people like Marco Rubio just jumped on the bandwagon so fucking fast, because that is how they roll. They will roll with the black people to get the culture and the comfort and be able to set up businesses in black neighborhoods. And as soon as they get their white card, they're right on board with that shit. You know how I know this? Because I knew a police officer who was a Democrat back in the 1990s. He starts going to law school that's paid for by the county. Gets to hanging around these white folks. Gets to talking with them. Now he's got a picture of Ronald Reagan on his wall. He's full on Republican and making jokes about Barack Obama, and probably voted for Donald Trump. I didn't talk to him for a long time, so I don't know that for a fact. But this is how the undesirables from other countries assimilate into the United States of America. The reason why black people and Native Americans and dark-skinned Latinos and dark-skinned Indians from India and dark-skinned Muslims cannot assimilate is because we're not high yellow or white. It is that simple. And we will never be accepted that way. Now, the Democratic Party, if you don't want to accept socialists, you cannot exist as a miniature white republic with the inclusion of these raisins in the rice or these other entities that you want to call white at your convenience and get our vote. It's not going to happen. So when you say you don't want to be in a party with certain individuals who are socialist, that's on you. You're 80 plus years old. You're going to be fucking dead in a few years. What the fuck do we care? And that's what we need to do, is start thinking about the future and not about the now. I don't give two shits about James Carville, because by making that statement, he's done his damage. I don't give two shits about Megyn Kelly, because she's getting uglier by the day, nastier by the day, and karma is a motherfucker. And it's coming around. You can believe me on that. So you can make your choice on that. But what I do not agree with is vote blue no matter who, and I never did. Just like my father, I base people on their record. I base people on their integrity. This is something that the Democratic Party is absolutely lost. It is absent. Because when you, as James Carville, a formerly respected commentator in the Democratic Party, get on YouTube and spew the exact same racist, classist rhetoric and lies that is being spewed by the Republicans and MAGA, you are done. And make no mistake, there are a lot more young people than there are Nancy Pelosi's and James Carville's and all these other motherfuckers sitting here trying to hold on to something that no longer belongs to them. You no longer represent us. Get it through your thick fucking skulls and move on. Go sit down somewhere. Go knit a scarf. But you can't lead, you can't follow, so it's time to get the fuck out of our way. You had your time, and you ruined America for Generation X and beyond. I don't want to hear another motherfucking word from you. Not another word. Now, Congress wants to be white. Maybe not here, but in here. And you cannot be white without judgment. You cannot continue to take AIPAC money and be pro-genocide and keep your hands clean and think we don't know the difference. If I pay someone to murder someone else, I have committed murder. When you fund ICE and you fund AIPAC, you are a murderer. Now, you might see it differently because it's masked as going across the aisle. But there are 340 million Americans in the United States, and most of them don't see it the way you do. You are commiserating with pedophiles and negotiating away our freedoms for profit. Once upon a time, this was a nation that fought a revolution against corruption, tyranny, and a king. The only people left to fight are those who don't hold public office, those who aren't judges, and those who don't sit in the White House. There's a new club forming in America. And guess what? If you're elected office, you're pro-AI, you're on the Supreme Court and voting to take away our liberties, or if you reside at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you don't belong in that club. You don't belong in that club. There are way more of us than there are of you. Lead, which you can't. Follow, which you can't. Or get the fuck out of our way. The future is dismal for you. It's going to be bright for us. Because there are millions of Americans that just need one moment one day to make that happen. Now, let me say this in closing. We choose the candidates that represent us. Podcasters, members of Congress and Senate, the Supreme Court, and the President are not for the people or by the people. Therefore, you do not choose where your party leans or does not lean. What you can choose is to no longer exist as a party. And right now, that's the choice that the Democratic Party is making. But that's on you. The direction of the party belongs to those who will be here after you are gone, not to you. You don't own our votes. You don't tell us what to do. And if you no longer want to be a part of the Democratic Party, that's your choice. It's not a party I claim any fucking way. So have at it. Be gone. But what you will do is die. And what will happen is what you thought you controlled, you did not. And your legacy is going to be one of atrocities, greed, animus, vitriol, and every single solitary thing that you claim you stand against. So let me tell you something, James Carville, you are nothing more than Megyn Kelly with that distorted face. Because you know what you showed is you are just as bad as that white person in America that says they're not racist, they have black friends. You showed your true colors. America is showing its true colors. But there are way more Zoran Mamdani's, Kyle Kalinski's, and Hassan Pikers out there than there are James Carville's and Megyn Kelly's. This is the Woke Socialist Podcast. See you next time.